Hi, friends. Welcome to the Date Like the Movies podcast with your host, Brent Jensen. Today, I have the pleasure and the privilege to be joined by my good friend, Kristin Kartsounes. Kristin is a dog mom of two, as well as a baseball and math enthusiast, currently living in the Sunshine State of Florida. Speaking of being a math enthusiast, an interesting fact about Kristin is that she got engaged to her husband of 9 years on March 14th, also known as Pi Day to the math enthusiast community. So, Kristin, welcome to Date Like the Movies.
Thanks, Brent. So excited to be here. How are you doing?
Good. Yeah, good to talk with you about one of your favorite movies, which I know we'll get into here in just a bit. But before we do, tell us more about this Pi Day proposal.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as you mentioned, I am a math enthusiast, otherwise known as a math nerd. I loved math all through junior high, high school. I studied it in college. I have a math degree, and I just love numbers, patterns, all those fun things. So, of course, I have to celebrate Pi Day, which, as you said, is March 14th, 3.14. And my husband surprised me with a proposal on the 14th of March, and this was back in 2015. For those who are really into math, you might know that the next two digits of pi are 1 5. So 3.1415, March 14th, 2015. We were
Okay.
at the beach in Siesta Key, and he proposed after a day at the beach, and the rest is history. It's my perfect
Hey.
Pi Day proposal, and we celebrate every year with making sure we eat some pie.
That's awesome. Two things on that story, Kristin. The first is you called yourself a math nerd. Those are your words. I've
Yes.
never called you a math nerd. So those are your words. And then secondly, I just love that. I love that proposal story because to me, it just speaks to your husband or your soon-to-be husband knew
Mhm.
something that was important to you, and he made it a priority. So I love that. Well, let's get into our featured movie for today's episode. And Kristin, one question I like asking folks when I'm talking about the Date Like the Movies concept is simply, what's your favorite movie? And for me, and I know some others as well, it's a tough question. Like I have a hard time thinking of like that one movie that is my favorite. But when I asked you this question a while back, you didn't even hesitate. Krista, why do you share with our listeners today what is your favorite movie and what is also the movie for today's episode?
The movie is Fever Pitch.
I have actually the case here too, Kristen, because I'm old school.
Yes, love
So
it.
I still use DVDs. Maybe
I've
some
got
of us still
mine.
do.
I
I've
got
got Fever
mine. Yeah.
Pitch here, which Kristen was actually released 20 years ago. I could not
Feeling
believe that.
feeling so old when I think about that. I know. So
I
I
know.
rewatched recently in preparation for our discussion today, and it hit me that yes, 20 years ago. It's so hard to believe. I guess it's starting to get into the category of being a classic, right? Which is a little sad and scary, but yes, a
Oh
beloved
yeah.
movie of mine.
The oldies now, coming from 2005.
Crazy.
But yeah, awesome. So we're talking Fever Pitch today, directed by the Farrelly brothers, and this movie stars Jimmy Fallon and the rom-com queen herself, Drew Barrymore. For those of you who might not be familiar with Fever Pitch, just a quick intro into the film. Ben Reitman is kind of our featured character, played by Jimmy Fallon. He's a 30-year-old school teacher. He's been a diehard Boston Red Sox fanatic since he was 7. So 23 years, just lives, eats, breathes all things Boston Red Sox, which includes attending every game of his season tickets. But not only that, he actually goes down to Florida and attends spring training down there as his life revolves around the Boston Red Sox. The other character in Fever Pitch is played by Drew Barrymore. That's Lindsey Meeks, a fellow 30-year-old who knows very little, perhaps nothing, of the sport, baseball, or the team, the Boston Red Sox. Regardless, the pair of Ben and Lindsey begin dating after an encounter where Ben takes a few of his students to meet a business professional, which turns out to be Lindsey. This romantic comedy is all about the relationship and navigating a different type of third wheel, the Boston Red Sox. And so we'll definitely get into third wheels a bit and his kind of his baseball passion or his baseball obsession. But first, Kristin, my question for you is, do you view Fever Pitch as a baseball movie or more as a relationship movie?
I I mean, I would say it's a relationship movie. I think that, at first glance, and certainly when it first came out back in 2005, it sparked my interest because, as you mentioned earlier, I am a baseball enthusiast, so I had to see it just based on that. But it's certainly a relationship movie with baseball as a big piece of it. It's a relationship movie, in my opinion.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I feel like my view has changed over the years. I definitely saw it years ago. And I think when I saw it initially, I was like, this is definitely a baseball movie. But lately, I've seen it a few more times, and I view it first and foremost as a relationship movie. But baseball, the Boston Red Sox, is kind of that theme right throughout. So I definitely agree with you on Fever Pitch being a relationship movie. Let's pick things up with the all-important topic of first dates and first impressions, because the first date in this movie, it's epic, it's iconic. There's probably a lot of it's disgusting, as we'll get into. There's a lot of words that we could use to describe their unusual first date. Initially, Lindsey rejects Ben's attempts to ask her out, but then she has a change of heart, thanks in large part to her friends, and agrees to go out with him. Ben shows up to Lindsey's apartment with flowers in hand, so mad props to him for showing up with flowers on their first date. But she has forgotten about the date, and she's a little preoccupied with something. Kristin, can you walk us through a bit around kind of what happens when Ben shows up to Lindsey's apartment?
I'm just going to say it's everyone's worst nightmare that you might not have even known you
Totally,
had.
totally.
You probably didn't even know it was your worst nightmare, but now you know it exists. And it's just a new fear unlocked for anyone that's still in the first dating world. Yes, Ben walks up, knocks. He hears Lindsey kind of walking up to the door, and she says something along the lines of, "Oh, no, that's tonight." She doesn't even remember. She sounds terrible. And it turns out she's very sick, food poisoning or something. She's throwing up. She's really sick, really awful situation for Ben. At first, he thinks she might be faking it to just get out of this date. But once he gets inside, she does open the door. So he comes inside and he realizes, no, this is the real deal. She is very, very ill. But what a great opportunity for him to really show up for her and show her who he could be in her life. He takes care of her. He cleans the bathroom for her. I mean, that's above and beyond. Not
That's
sure
like
I'd
A
be doing
plus
that on a
plus. That's
first date.
crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like 99.9% of us would have left or have done something that Ben did not do. But Ben, being the guy that he is, yeah, he totally just takes advantage, steps up, not what he had in mind at all, right, for this first date. But yeah, clean the bathroom. That is like, I don't want to clean the bathroom ever, and he's
Right.
doing it on a first date.
Yes.
So that's pretty impressive. But Chris, thinking about first impressions, when you think about dating, how important do you feel first impressions should be in dating? And is it even possible to know if those first impressions are accurate to who people really are?
I think as the person, well, obviously, as the person going on the date, you want to put your best foot forward and give the best first impression. I mean, that shows you care, all that. But it really is, I've always said that, and kind of goes both ways. A first date is like a job interview. A job interview is like a first date. You're really getting the best and maybe quite possibly a little bit of a facade of the person. I would say good or bad, maybe don't put all of your evaluation into just how that first date is going. Even if someone's trying to be on their best behavior, or maybe they're nervous and they're showing up in a way that they aren't normally, there are still some things you can look for. You can observe things about a person. You can look at how, they're treating you, how they're treating others around you. So I think there are certain things that can still play into that first impression, but I would say don't expect perfection because you're
Yeah.
probably also nervous and not showing up as yourself completely.
Yeah. Absolutely. I love that, everything you said there, Kristen. Thinking about the emotions, or the feelings that you have. And job interview, a good example. Dating, right? A good example there, because there's nerves, there's anxious feelings, and those can affect people in ways that are not normal. Whether it's, some might be affected where they're talking too fast, or they're just talking about themselves, and maybe that's not who they are, but because of those feelings, that's what it's coming across as. Or maybe it's the opposite, where those feelings, that individual, lead them to just be super quiet, and not talkative at all. And so I think you're right in the sense of, yes, important, and we do want to put our best foot forward, I believe, in those moments. But let's give grace too, for
Mhm.
ourselves and for others. And unless there's something that goes terribly wrong, or is, a deal breaker, which we can talk about kind of later on too, look for opportunities to say yes to a second date, because as you go, hopefully you'll get more chances to kind of get to know the real them. So,
I like what you say about giving grace. That's a good way to look at it. Give some
yeah,
grace.
yeah, and I think yourself too, right? Give yourself some grace, give them
Hmm.
some grace, and yeah, go with those intentions. So I do have to ask though, because it goes back to Ben and Lindsay's disgusting sick date. Is one way we can describe it. Have you ever faked sick to get out of a date, or any other similar excuse that was just, you know what, I'm not doing this, I'm faking?
I have not, as I can recall, at least it's been a long time since I was in the dating world, but
Okay.
I've not faked sick. However, a long time ago when I was in high school, I do recall being on a date. So someone that I dated for like 2 weeks, right? High school love,
That's
as we
long
say.
term. Two weeks.
Maybe
That's
not
that's
love,
long
but
term. Yeah.
yeah, high school relationship. So we were out at the movies, whatever. And first of all, I had arranged to be staying at my friend's house that evening just because number one, it was closer to where we were going to be going. And number two, I didn't want him meeting my parents, getting into that whole thing. I mean, that was just way too soon for that. And, teenagers, it's just so. Anyway, he had picked me up at my friend's house and we went to the movies. I started feeling a little uncomfortable, felt like he was being a little aggressive, trying to kind of move things a little faster than I wanted to move. This was back in the day of, pay phones and pagers. So I didn't have a cell phone, but I just said, hey, I got to check in with my friend. Her mom said I have to check in or she might be contacting my parents or whatever. So we found a payphone. He's standing there while I'm calling, which looking back, I feel like that was a little controlling and odd. But anyway, so he's standing right there. Ring, ring. I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm just checking in. And so she's on the other end, just like, oh, how's it going? How's it going? All excited. And I'm like, oh, your mom says I have to come home. Oh, no. Okay. Really? Are you sure? Oh, oh, no. Yeah, no, I don't want you to get in trouble. I don't want her calling my mom. Okay. Hung up and said, I need to have you take me home. Her mom just wants me home. She says it's too late at this point. I need to get home. He took me home. So that was definitely a made up story to get out of the situation, and that was kind of the tail end of that relationship. But yeah, that's what comes to mind.
I'd say you were, yeah, a good reason, a very good reason to get out of that one. Thinking kind of back to Ben's initial reaction when he shows up and Lindsay says she's sick, and this is before he sees her. He initially thinks, "Oh, she's faking." And I feel like that's like the normal thought. If I was going on, especially a first date, you didn't know them well, and they were saying, "You know what, I'm sick," I think my mind would go there too.
Well,
Like, they're probably faking.
especially because she said no the first time he asked.
Yeah.
So there's already that seed planted of does she even really want to do this or is she just trying to be nice, trying to let me down easy?
Yeah, but then he sees her, and then it's clear.
Hmm.
Oh, she's sick. Yeah. Once he sees her,
Yeah.
there's no question anymore. She is sick. But to your point too, it's interesting because that date started so unexpected, unusual, not the way either of them would have wanted. Yet I feel like it progressed them so much more than they would have on a normal date because she got to see him like take care of her in a way that just doesn't
Hmm.
happen that early on, especially on the first date.
Oh
And
yeah.
so it's just interesting to see like the progression because of kind of that first experience.
Yeah, it's all about how do you show up for me in the worst of times, right? I mean, everyone can show up well in the best of times, but how are you going to show up for me in the worst of times? And that was an example just right off the bat.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about first impressions of another kind. If you're starting to date somebody and they've got to meet your friends, right? Those are important to us too, and then family as well. I know, Kristin, we talked previously about this movie a bit, and one of your favorite scenes is when Lindsay's parents see Ben, but they don't know it's actually him. Can you talk us through your favorite scene there?
Yeah, yeah. Well, so I'm gonna have to give a little bit of a pre-scene, just
Definitely.
to tie it all together. They've been dating a little bit, it's still early on, and Lindsay is going. It's March, which by the way is spring training month. Talk about that in a second. But Lindsay is going down to, I think, Maryland, where she's from, to visit her parents, and she wants Ben to come with her to meet her parents. And he says, "Oh, I can't come." She's like, well, why not? And he says, I'm going to spring training in Florida. And she says, oh, the Red Sox let you train with them? And he says, well, no, not exactly, but I go with my friends. We go every year. We scout out all the players. We see who the new players are. We decide who they should keep for the regular season. She says, and they listen to you. The Red Sox take your advice. Well, no, but I mean, maybe they will one day. So anyway, so she's a little disappointed, but she's like, fine, got it. This was planned. Fast forward to the scene. She's at her parents' house in Maryland. She's talking to her dad, talking a little bit about just things, how things are going, and he's got the TV on, and Sports Center is on. And they flash to a scene where they're, at spring training, and specifically the Red Sox. And they're showing Red Sox Nation, which is all the fans that follow them around everywhere. You see in the background everybody kind of going crazy. And at first, Lindsay just says, oh, is this the Red Sox? And she's interested because Ben is a Red Sox fan and she's trying to educate herself and kind of get into it. So she turns it up and she's watching, and then all of a sudden Ben's in the background jumping around like an idiot, saying, just saying all these things, and oh my God, the Red Sox, whatever. And she's just got this horrified look on her face, like, oh, what in the world is going on? Her dad says, look at these idiots, or something along those lines. What an idiot. Um, and she's mortified that that is actually the person she's dating, but little do her parents know that's him.
Yeah, that's like that moment where she doesn't want them to make the connection. Like she does not want them to make the connection that is my boyfriend.
Yeah, and I think
You're
that was the
seeing on
first
screen.
kind of opening for her of like realizing this love for the Red Sox goes deep. Deeper than I
Yeah,
think she thought possible. And what does this mean?
yeah. So we'll definitely get into that. Okay, going back to you and your husband for a second, when you introduced him to your family or friend, was that, were you nervous about that? Were you anxious about that, or were you like, this is nothing? Like I've
Um, yeah, I don't think I was. I mean, a little bit, right? You're always a little bit nervous. You want, your parents to like who you're dating
Yep.
and who you like. He definitely has a unique sense of humor and sarcasm, which sometimes my mom doesn't fully like understand the sarcasm. So I was a little nervous about that and how that was going to go, but it was great. We went to dinner in downtown Chicago where my parents used to live. It was great. It went really well. I can't complain. There was nothing along the lines of fever pitch. It went really smoothly, and yeah, no fun stories really there.
So your mom did not call him an idiot then?
No, there was
I'm
no,
assuming. Okay,
no,
good.
no, no name calling, nothing
Okay,
like
good.
that. Yep.
I referenced earlier. We talked about how Lindsay initially turned Ben down. When he asked her out, but then had a change of heart, which, speaking of friends, was influenced by her friends accusing her of being too picky in a
Hmm.
sense, right? Where one of her friends says, "This is a direct quote. All right, Lindsay, what's the matter with this one?" Right? even implying that his job as a school teacher, might not be enough or might be a stumbling block, or at least it's not who she usually would date, right? As they were kind of comparing him to the others that she had dated previously. So I'd like to talk about here for a minute or two about settling versus perfection, right? How can a woman or a man balance settling for somebody versus expecting perfection when considering a significant other? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so definitely personal choice for everyone. You got to think about what are the things, and obviously this is assuming we're striving for a relationship that's going to be, the rest of your life potentially. What are the things that you absolutely cannot deal with the rest of your, what are the deal breakers, whether that's differences in your moral compass, your ethical beliefs, how you plan on raising your children, whatever that might be. There might be certain things that are just so vastly different. Those I would consider, you need to evaluate what would your deal breakers be there versus things that, yeah, I wish this person had this or that. I wish that they were more interested in this thing that I'm interested in, but is that a deal breaker? Or is it okay to have some different interests? We probably don't want a carbon copy of ourselves. I think people just need to have an open mind. Remember that you're not perfect either. You can use prior relationships or other relationships that you see around you to help you too, to see, okay, this is not something I would want to feel like I was stuck dealing with for the next 30, 40, 50 years, or is this really that big of a deal? Like, don't get hung up on the small stuff, I guess.
Have you seen that help you when you were kind of initially dating your husband and thinking about previous relationships? And were there things that you saw you had before you're like, I don't want that anymore? Do you have an example of that?
My most serious example, to be quite honest, I dated someone that was not physically really, but mentally and emotionally abusive. I dated this person for several years. Now, it was one of those high, high, low, low, like they were really charming and really fun, and then all of a sudden when they weren't happy, they weren't happy, and it was just like this roller coaster of emotions, and you never knew what you were going to get. I was on edge, and for whatever reason, I think I just thought this is the way it is. People are happy and then people get really mad or whatever. And once I got out of that and had some time to just kind of process, and then got to see how it was with my husband when we were dating, and that you can have the fun. And yeah, of course, people have disagreements and things. That's normal, that's healthy, but not to the point of you're scared of someone. They're making you, just feel like you're not enough and putting you down constantly. And that was a big thing that I knew I could not put up with or tolerate ever again.
That's such a huge issue, and a common challenge too, I think, for many is going for the same type of individuals because it's what you're used to. And I think, to your point of maybe that's just the way it is because it's what you know. I think there is a huge challenge in that and overcoming that. And maybe it's not until you have somebody else where you're like, you know what, that's not how it should be. I should not be treated like that. I think it takes somebody else to sometimes take you out of that. But to get to that point with an individual, I think is challenging. A lot of folks, some I know personally, struggle with that.
I guess for anyone out there, if you're in that situation, there is better out there for you. Like, just think of that, because I feel like people do just think this is the way it is, or this is what I deserve, and I'm here, and I've already invested the time, so I'll just stay here. So that'll just be my message for the day on that.
Yeah, sounds good. Hey, Kristin, you reminded me of a common phrase or a saying we hear a lot, which is the grass isn't always greener. It's something that's cliche. I think we hear that a lot. But sometimes it is. Sometimes it is greener. It depends on the situation, depends on the relationship, where, yeah, right, you don't want to expect perfection, but if you're being treated poorly or abusively, yeah, there's better people out there. I know many, you know many, and you know what? Sometimes the grass is greener.
Yeah, 100%.
Let's talk here. Oh, this is actually one of my favorite movie moments in Fever Pitch. Her nickname, the Seagull. She gets called the Seagull, and this is soon after their first date. It's when She eats off of Ben's plate. I believe at a restaurant, and he calls her, or she refers to herself as the seagull for doing that, which I could see that as being either a pet peeve or it could be just one of those quirks that makes
Hmm.
just a person unique, depending on
Yeah.
your perspective.
Oh, it's so
Is it a
cute.
pet peeve or
Yeah.
is it so cute? Or okay, I could go either way
Yeah.
with that one. Do you have any like dating pet peeves?
Well, first of all, I'll say I am definitely the French fry. Maybe not all the things off the plate, but I do always like to say, I'll just have one of your fries, or let me just have a couple of your fries. And that drives my husband nuts. So I would say
I
he would
feel
not
like
be a fan of the seagull.
I feel like the French fry should be the exception. Like French fries should always be acceptable to be grabbed.
Guilty of that. But for me, I mean, I would say, I mean, I'm thinking about just minor things when you're out on a date, and that could be with someone you're newly dating or maybe not, maybe someone that you're in a long-term relationship with, looking at their phones the whole time. Well, I feel like that's actually more of a red flag for if you're newly dating and they're already doing that, that's probably a bigger problem. I think the longer in a relationship, you get comfortable, you have less to say because you've been together for so long. There's maybe nothing to talk about. So someone might pull out their phone. Maybe you're talking about something and they're pulling the phone out to look up what you're talking about.
Hmm.
And that's okay, maybe, but it should be few and far between. It shouldn't be like we're out to dinner and we're just sitting here like this. But I go to restaurants and I look around and I see that a lot. I find that to be sad, but not surprising with the world we're in. So that would be one thing. Definitely something that's never happened to me, but you see it around and definitely like in movies and TV shows. I guess I don't want to be stereotyping and say it's usually the man, but I feel like it is usually the man wants to order for you and doesn't want to let you talk. Like maybe they think they're
Oh,
being kind of
interesting.
like, and it's one thing if maybe you've been together and they know what you want and they're just like, oh yeah, we're gonna get, this is our usual. But if you're on a first date and the person thinks they're presumptuous enough to know what you want to eat and drink and they just order for you, that would annoy me so much. Luckily, I've never run into that, but that would really annoy me, especially because I'm really picky. So, how do you even know what I'm going to eat?
Technology is the first one I thought of too. Like you mentioned phones, and that actually comes through in Fever Pitch to transition us
Hmm.
back to the movie because Ben doesn't even own a phone. And he's
Yeah.
vocal about, I don't even have a phone. And this was 2005, which I was
Yeah.
thinking about it, Kristen. The first cell phone I had was 2006. So when the movie came out,
You
I
were
was in
off the
Ben's
grid like
situation.
Ben. You were
I
off the
was.
grid.
I was like Ben at that time in my life. And then, right, there's the moment in the movie where Lindsay is good about going to the games with Ben. She's trying to support
Hmm.
him, but she always takes her laptop.
Hmm.
She's always taking her laptop. She's always working. And yeah, so technology for me, I think, is a big one. And to your point, on first dates, yeah, that's not a good sign in my mind. So,
No, definitely not.
yeah.
And I guess this goes beyond pet peeve. Like this might be more of a big red flag, but people that are rude to the waiters or waitresses, the serving staff,
Right.
they might be on their best behavior with me and they're being like so smooth and like thoughtful and bringing the flowers and pulling the chair, opening the car door, all the things. But then they're like really rude to the waiter. That's it. Like to me, I'm just like I'm out. That's a huge red flag to me.
That might even be a deal breaker because when you
Hmm.
say I'm out, that might even
Yeah.
be, I'm not going to put up with someone who treats people poorly,
Yeah.
because then it feels like it's a facade to you. Like, why are
Hmm.
you treating me so well
Yeah.
and you're treating everybody else like garbage? Like,
Yeah.
eventually, it's going to come to you. I would think.
Either that or it's just
Right.
like, oh, you think you're so much better than certain people. Like, I don't know. Yeah, to me, that's a deal breaker.
Yeah. What do you see as kind of differences between red flags and deal breakers? Like, how do you view or distinguish between the two?
I think they're kind of the same. I think a lot of times there's red flags that people choose to ignore or try to kind of excuse or reason away so that it's not a deal breaker because they like so many other things about the person. And that definitely could go back to what I was talking about earlier with prior relationship I was in, major red flags, but all these other things that we have in common and we like to do, and we have so much fun when we do them. So it's fine. You reason it away. But really, if it's a red flag, it's probably a deal breaker. You could have yellow flags that maybe those are things that you dig into more. They're not
Hmm.
as severe, but a red flag, it's probably a deal breaker.
Yeah. Justification is the first thing I thought of as you were talking. We try and justify, like you said,
Hmm.
he does all this stuff to me, but he also treats me like crap. When he gets angry, he gets abusive. Even though he treats me good half the time, we tend to justify, I think, someone's behavior sometimes more than we should. Yeah, absolutely. So, and I think you're right that red flags are often those things that we wish we treated like deal breakers early on.
Hmm.
Because I think more often than not always, right? There's exceptions. We have to dig into some of those things, but often, I believe individuals wish they looked at red flags as deal breakers because they get worse down the road as opposed to
Hmm.
better. And so I think that's
Or
good words of
yeah, or
wisdom.
they're stuck. Yeah, or they're so deep in they feel stuck.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, yep. All right, well let's talk baseball. I mean,
Oh
this is
yeah,
fever
let's.
pitch. Yeah, we haven't even talked baseball too much yet, and so let's talk about baseball and passions and obsessions. I know Ben here is Boston Red Sox fanatic, Kristen, and you are a Sox fan of a different kind. Is that right?
Oh yeah, you got it. So I'm a Chicago White Sox fan. Yes, it's been a tough couple of years. So to quote the movie, I think near the beginning, the narrator says, "Then it became one of God's most pathetic creatures, a Red Sox fan." Well, that same could be said for a White Sox fan right now. But yes, I was raised a White Sox fan by my dad, who was also, a lifelong Sox fan. And that is part of what made me love this movie. Like, I love baseball, I love the White Sox, but during the time when this movie came out, I was probably at my peak of just how into baseball I was. Not only the White Sox games, but just following the teams throughout the season. And that year, 2004, which is when the movie takes place, even though it came out in 2005, but the movie takes place 2004 Red Sox season. That was a phenomenal season for them. Just some amazing games coming back from behind to beat the Yankees in the playoffs, all of that. And I lived through that and watched that. And as someone who, sorry, Yankees fans, did not like the Yankees because they always won and we need someone else to win, was rooting for the Red Sox. Definitely, that is a big part of why I loved this movie to begin with. But yeah, big baseball fan. Since moving, out of Chicago into Florida, don't get to see them as much, but probably better the last couple of years. I'm okay with that.
Well, Kristen, you know I live in Michigan, and if you look at the standings, the Detroit Tigers are leading the division.
That's
So if you
right.
want to switch teams, just
Congrats.
switch teams for a year or two. We'll take you on as a bandwagon
I
fan.
mean, I appreciate that. I try not to be a bandwagon fan. I feel like I got to stick with what I've got, but maybe just don't pay quite as much attention right now. Like just kind of take a little break from it all.
I can tell you, our friend Ben from Fever Pitch would be very proud of you for sticking with your team. So how's that transition back to our
Yes,
movie
good
here?
segue.
Talking about Ben and the Boston Red Sox. To his credit, I do want to say he openly confesses and admits to Lindsay early on in their relationship that this passion, this obsession he has with the Red Sox has led to the demise of previous relationships. Like he just came out and said it. And I feel like that's something that we might hide more often than just come out with it. So I really did appreciate him saying that. But I'd love your thoughts, Kristen, on do you view Ben's Red Sox fandom as a passion or an obsession?
Uh, I'm gonna say it's an obsession.
Okay, why?
It, look at his apartment. He's a 30-year-old, presumably 30-ish-year-old man, and it looks like a teenage, maybe college age boy's room. It's just,
That's a good
and I'm,
comparison.
listen, I'm all for, I've got my Sox memorabilia. It's all kind of, on a few shelves in one room, not in the main area. I've got a few things, from going to the games over the years. I had season tickets for quite a while. So I get it. And I get being sentimental, but the shower curtain, the Yankees toilet paper, the pillowcase, like
Yep.
it's
Yep.
just it's a lot,
Yeah.
even for me.
Yeah. When you think of a fan who is just diehard, everything about that team, I think of Ben, and I agree with you. It's total obsession because it controls his life. That's how I
Hmm.
view it. It's an obsession because like, his plans always revolve around the Red Sox, and so from that standpoint, I would say he's definitely passionate, but I'd say it goes into that obsession territory too.
Yeah.
I want to kind of move on now, talking about how Lindsay views that because I find this so
Hmm.
interesting in the movie. Because early on, Lindsay sees it as a positive that he's so passionate about something. And so here's a quote. This is Ben and Lindsey, direct from the movie, where Ben says, this is early on in the film. He says, I like being part of something that's bigger than me, than I. It's good for your soul to invest in something you can't control. Lindsay replies, you're a romantic. You have a lyrical soul. You can love under the best and worst conditions. So, Kristen, initially, what does Lindsay do about her boyfriend Ben's Red Sox obsession?
I think she embraces it. She sees the positive side of it and she dives in, commits to, if you love this, I'm going to learn to love it. She learns about the game. She goes to the game. She wears the gear. She meets all of his summer family, all of the season ticket holders that sit around him. She learns the lingo, all of the things. Like she gets into it considering I don't think she knew anything about it before. She's really diving in and trying to learn to love what he loves.
That's a huge lesson, too, because when you hear about things that are passionate, that folks are passionate about, it can be anything. And often, if we don't share that interest, it does seem odd from an outsider's perspective. The fact that she's getting in there, like you said, she's reading books, she's going to the games, she's learning about the curse of
Hmm.
the
Bambino.
Bambino.
Hmm.
Like she has no idea what that even means. All that kind of stuff. That's a lesson from Lindsay. And then Ben's lesson I kind of mentioned earlier for me was, yeah, don't have to hide it. It's a huge part of your life, and so he doesn't hide it. And the fact that it ruined previous relationships would be scary. I would say too, not to hide it because he's
Hmm.
seen it in the past. It's worked against him. But down the road, this Red Sox obsession leads to their breakup. And Ben and Lindsay break up in the movie as the Red Sox obsession crosses that line from Lindsay viewing it as a positive to
Hmm.
then a breakup. And so here's that quote from Lindsay, where she says, well, it certainly got me thinking, that's for sure, Ben. If I'm with a guy for 11 months and I think I might be having his child, I'm going to ask myself, is this the guy? And if it is, what's this going to be like? If we are going to be Mr. and Mrs. Ben and Lindsay, how is this going to work? It's like Robin's birthday party. The minute I got the invitation, I had to run to the refrigerator and check the Red Sox schedule. And the Yankees are playing. So I know I'm going stag. And that's okay. I'm fine with that. But how far does it go? Grandma, don't die because the Red Sox are going out on the road. So please wait until they come back to die. And doctor, induce labor because the Oakland A's are coming in tomorrow. Ben responds to Lindsay by saying, you remember last winter? This is exactly what you liked about me, that I was capable of having a passionate commitment with something, a devotion. And this to me is Lindsay's mic drop moment. I feel like when she responds to Ben by saying, yes, but you feel it for the Red Sox, and I was hoping that someday you might redirect that. All those things that you feel for that team, I feel them too for you. There's a lot, I think, that goes into the quotes there, her feelings, how initially it was a positive. Down the road, it leads to their breakup. And so I want to ask you a question about third wheels, kind of to kick off this
Hmm.
discussion here. What do you define as a third wheel when it comes to relationships?
It's interesting because I think of the phrase, or I think of like when I don't know, I'm just thinking of it from my perspective. If I feel like I'm a third wheel, like what does that mean? Like if I'm a third wheel, I'm out with two people that are it could be a couple, it could be two people that are closer than I am to them, but I'm out there and I just feel like I'm kind of tagging along and maybe I shouldn't be there or I'm left out because they've got this tighter connection, whatever. That's what I think of as a third wheel. I would dare to say that in this movie, you could argue one or the other that the Red Sox are, but I would almost say Lindsay is, that it's Ben and the Red Sox, and Lindsay's just trying to keep up with them and find her place in this relationship. And she's kind of the third wheel, feeling like, gosh, I'm tagging along. This is the tight bond between them. I can't seem to manage to get that same connection. I don't even know if I'm wanted here.
Kristin, you just opened my eyes because I definitely view the Red Sox as a third wheel in this scenario, but you flipped it, and it totally makes sense the way you described that, where Ben does have a relationship, a huge one with the Red Sox, and Kristin, more often than not Kristin, you're Kristin, Lindsay,
Yeah.
more often than not, is on the outside looking in. More often than not, we think of that as people. We think of people as third wheels, but how about video games? Video
100,
games,
yeah, 100%.
yeah, a huge one that can get in the way of relationships. This is a sport team playing sports. It can keep with the sports theme.
Your
If that
cell
gets in the way.
phone, back to the cell phone. It could be the cell phone, not just at dinner, just all the
Mm-hmm.
time.
Yep, yeah, and when those things become third wheel, and the other person is feeling not important, they wish they were connected to that person like they are to the phone
Hmm.
or to the sport or to the team or to whatever it is. To your point, yeah, like trying to keep up with something else when they should be ideally, right, the priority
Hmm.
in the relationships. Have you ever been in a relationship like that where you talked about previous relationships with some mental anger issues,
Hmm.
but what about somebody who maybe it was video games or was something else that really got in the way?
Definitely. Definitely. That's another thing that I love about my husband, Tom. He is not a big video game person at all. And I'm so grateful for that because I've dated several people in the past that
Hmm.
were. And I think in the beginning, it's like, oh, yeah, that's a thing to do. It's fine. But it would turn into up until 2 or 3 a.m. playing the video games, like just like carving out hours and hours, and it just becomes more and more and more. It's crazy because you're kind of like, I'm a person here and you're obsessed. And I get it, like they're playing with other people online or whatever, and it could be their friends, but still, at what point you draw the line? I'm just so glad I don't have to deal with that.
Yeah. And I've seen situations too, Christy, where it becomes even a bigger issue because if you're single, okay, I would still say
Yeah.
not healthy to do that, but okay, you have less responsibility because you're really just looking out for
Yeah.
yourself. But then when you become in a relationship, or even more so in marriage,
Hmm.
and then when you have kids,
Hmm.
right, you're shirking marital responsibilities, you know, parent responsibilities. And again, we're talking video games, but it could be a number of things
Yeah.
that could lead a person to do that. So Tom should listen to this episode because you have been saying how awesome he is. So hopefully, Tom, you're one of our listeners and you tune in because Kristin is singing your praises, my
The
friend.
model husband.
That's right.
The award goes to.
Yes, yes. We should do Date Like the Movie Awards. That's a great idea,
Yes.
Kristin.
Okay.
And speaking of Ben's passion, his obsession, he actually turns down a trip to Paris. A trip to Paris. So
Hmm.
let's just say it's not even Paris. Let's just say it's your dream destination, like
Hmm.
your dream vacation or place to go. Would you ever pass that up to attend a baseball game?
This probably isn't going to happen anytime soon, but if it was a World Series game and my team was in the World Series, I probably would. But other than that, probably a regular season, no.
Yeah. So it depends on the stakes somewhat.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that because World Series that could itself be a once in a lifetime
Hmm.
opportunity. You could mention this at the beginning around Fever Pitch being your favorite movie and a few reasons why. There's the baseball connection. There's a math
Hmm.
connection, which is more so on the Lindsay side. When we meet her, her job is very kind of math
And Ben's
focused
a math
there.
teacher.
Yeah, that's true. Ben's a math. He takes his students to Lindsay right there at in the
Yeah.
opening scene,
That was a
opening
fun
moments.
surprise. Yeah, that I didn't know going in. Like obviously when you see the commercials or whatever, however we found out about the movies back in the day, right? That wasn't like a math teacher. Da, 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 da. That wasn't like a hook for me. Obviously the baseball part of it was more,
Hmm.
but once I got into watching the movie, I was like, oh, this really is the perfect movie for me. It's got baseball, it's
Hmm.
got math, it's got a love story. It's
Yeah,
fantastic.
yeah. Speaking of the love story, is there something that you really liked a lot about their relationship throughout the movie?
Just seeing that progression of first of all what Ben does at the beginning, the first date, going above and beyond, and just they grow that relationship and the effort she puts in to learn, baseball. I love seeing all that, and it's kind of when the movie first opens, it actually shows Ben as a child going to his first Red Sox game, and all of the people his uncle takes him, and then everybody at the game is explaining to him. He learns all of the things, and then fast forward to when Lindsay starts going to the games and they're all kind of explaining to her. It's just the tradition, and it's part of what I love about baseball. I learned from my dad, and you can pass that on. So it's almost that tradition of learning about the game and the curse and all the stories behind it. That was one thing I loved. And then the relationship, not only Lindsay dedicating herself to learn something that Ben loves so much. And then of course, they run into their challenges and we're not sure if they're gonna make it. And at the end, Ben decides, I love Lindsay so much. I'm going to give these tickets up because this is what's causing the problem, and I'm not going to let that get in the way. And then meanwhile, Lindsay finds out that's happening, and she's like, no, I if you love me that much, I love you enough to not let you do that. You're gonna regret this. And they make kind of the ultimate sacrifice for each other in the way.
They both have that realization. Fast
Mm-hmm.
forwarding to the end of the movie, where he's a signature away. He is literally a
Mm-hmm.
signature away from signing away his Red Sox tickets because he finally is like, you know what? As much as I love the Red Sox, he picks Lindsay. That he's kind of like choosing. He's choosing. Is it Red Sox or is it
Mm-hmm.
Lindsay? Eventually, at the end, he picks Lindsay, and she realizes at the same time, in a different place, he's giving this up for me. When she finds out he's giving this away, and so in Hollywood fashion, she races to the stadium, jumps on the field, escapes multiple security guards, goes to where Ben is sitting, right? Jumps up and like, stops him right in the nick of time before he signs away his season tickets. And then I'm sure she had to spend a night or so in jail, which they did not show
Yeah,
us that part. But
definitely. Yeah, definitely. I know it's not the most realistic with not with kind of outrunning all of these people, but it sure makes for good Hollywood scene, that's for sure.
we often hear about happily ever after,
Hmm.
where oh movies right they're fake. That's not real life. It's happily ever after, and that's because movies stop at a point.
Hmm.
Right? Movies stop at that point of it's the happy wedding or it's right all the problems are not resolved, so it's that happy point. Let's talk about as we get close to wrapping this up afterwards what we don't see in the movie because Ben and Lindsay agree they're going to make it work with keeping the Red Sox and keeping each other. They
Hmm.
said, you know what, we can do both. But Lindsay actually says, let's jerk one out of the park or something to that effect, where she's like, let's do it all. We don't have to pick. What do you think that they really need to do then to make that happen?
Number one, they just need to communicate better up front. Also, if he was willing to give up all the tickets and all the games, and basically he was never going to go to a game again unless he just bought a one off ticket or got invited or whatever, then certainly if he's keeping the tickets, I mean, logistically, why not at the beginning of each season go through before he does his little draft that he does with his friends
Love
to
that
kind of do
scene.
it. So we'll talk about that in a minute.
They're
But
dancing, they're
before
dancing.
the dancing, but so if you were willing to give up all of it, then couldn't you at the beginning of the season go through the schedule, pick, you agree on how many games are we going to go to together? How many games is he going to go to by himself? And how many games is he going to give away? So he's not going to go to 81 games anymore because that's how many games are home games there are in a season. It's just too much. But at the beginning, plan it out. It, to me, I think previous to kind of how this movie wraps up, it was like he wasn't willing to do that. He had to be at every game. The one time he missed a game and it was a good game, he was very resentful, all of that. But if you were willing to sign away all of it, this is better than signing away all of it. You're still getting to keep some of it. I think that's where the compromise, like, let's plan around it. Let's figure out what are the things we're going to do. And she doesn't have to be at every single one. And earlier in the movie, that was another thing she kind of did to try to work around this. She was going for a promotion at work. She needed to work long hours. She said, you know what? I'm going to pull back from going to the games, but I'll be here waiting for you. I was just balancing how much can they or he dedicate to that, and knowing that there's got to be communication and things are going to come up in life, and life really for the most part is going to need to come first, depending on what it is. What do you think?
Kristin, yeah, I wonder how many relationship problems could improve or could be solved perhaps with better communication. Like, because that was the first thing you said. I wonder how many just relationship problems. The answer is better communication. Better communication. I
Most
feel
of
like
them.
that's just so. Yeah, most of them. I absolutely do agree with that. You gave some good examples, to specifics around how to make that happen, which come down to better communication and letting your significant other know how you feel, which I think is a huge part of that. Because if you're not feeling like a priority, then you need to let them know and work through that together. Compromise is part of that. In this situation, still going to games. Lindsey's still going to some of them. Ben being willing to, hey, if Lindsey's got big events, we didn't even talk about all the scenes, but there was a birthday party in the movie, right? There were some other things there. Communicate that those are really important to her. And then Ben being willing to say, you know what? I'm going to choose my girlfriend for these specific events because it's really important to her. So good communication, always the answer.
And just, maybe record the game if you can't go. And I know it's not the same, but you have to be willing to make that compromise. You cannot be, I mean, you can, but you're not going to be able to really have a life outside of the team if you are literally at every game. You can never miss. Everything revolves around that. It's going to be really, really, really tough to establish any sort of life outside of that. And so it's got to be compromised.
Kristin, I have to have you talk about now, before we get to the final segment here, the scene about the dancing and the draft. You referenced it. It is one of the best scenes in the movie. So what's going down there?
Ben gets the tickets, which I love this scene because, like I mentioned before, I had season tickets just weekend, so I wasn't as obsessed, right? I had 27 games, not 81, but 27 games to the Sox, and it brought back memories of when we would get the tickets every year. So in kind of early spring time, the tickets are delivered. Nowadays, I think they don't even do tickets. I think it's all electronic, which is so sad. But you used to get this box and you would open it up and there was just the books with all the tickets and all the games. The scene shows him going outside and getting it, I think, from, the delivery guy, and then going upstairs and the friends are there and they're opening it up and they're smelling the tickets. Oh, it's a fresh season. They're all the possibilities. And I just can so relate to this. And then basically Ben goes through the schedule, the season, and kind of bargains and decides which friends are going to go with him to which games. It seems to be a tradition they have every year. So when they get to the Yankees tickets, which of course is the biggest rivalry, that's the game everyone wants to go to, or the series everyone wants to go to, he then basically decides, let's have a little dance off. If you want Yankees tickets, I want to see you all dance. And then I'll decide who gets the Yankees tickets. And it's hilarious.
It is. It's a classic scene. Great fever pitch moment. And he even does a opening day proposal to Lindsay.
Yeah, yes, that's
Where
right.
another big one is opening day, and he proposes to her with the opening day ticket there as well.
Yeah, that should have been a sign for her, for sure. The obsession runs deep.
Oh yes, yeah. Well, let's move on, Kristen, to our final segment, Date That Movie. And so a big part of Date Like the Movies is not just to discuss the movies, but also to give date ideas to all the listeners, to whatever stage you're at within a relationship, whether it's you're single, you're just started dating somebody, you're committed, you've been married for 50 years, everywhere between. It's important to keep that dating spirit alive. And so Date That Movie is all about just being inspired by different things from this specific movie that could be a date for somebody. Anything that speaks to imagination or creativity or an idea from the movie is what Date That Movie is all about. Kristen, let's start with you on your idea for Date That Movie.
Okay, so the first one that I think is kind of the obvious one that jumps to mind is going to a baseball game, of course. But here's some other ideas I have. First of all, mini golf, and that would be in a nod to Ben's golf outing with Lindsay's parents, which is a
Yes,
scene we
yep.
didn't talk about, but that you could do that, and that would tie back to the movie. You could go to a French restaurant in honor of the trip to Paris that should have happened. And oh, okay, so this is more location specific, but if you happen to live where I live, down here on the west coast of Florida, you could go to a charming town called Tarpon Springs. They have sponge docks there, so they actually have the town started because they have sponge divers that would go down and literally dive for sponges, and then all the stores sell these sponges, and you can go on boat tours and all these things. Well, the narrator of the movie, who's also at the games, Al Waterman, always gives each new person that shows up to the game, "I'm Al, here's a sponge. Nice to meet you, here's a sponge." So there's a tie there. There's a creative idea. And going back to the dance competition, you could have a dance competition. You could
I like
go
that one.
to like a dancing club type place and think about how you need to dance to win those Yankees tickets.
I asked for one idea, and you gave us like
Oh,
20. How about that?
sorry, I
That's
didn't hear the
perfect.
one
No, that's
part.
perfect. That's better. More is better when it comes to date ideas. And although we didn't talk about the French restaurant, we did talk about French fries. So we did
That's
talk
true.
about
Okay, yeah,
that
there you
a
go.
bit. Now, I
But
actually did a fever pitch date, Kristen. It was baseball, so we went with the baseball route. We went to a Detroit Tigers game, which was against the Red Sox. It was crazy how that worked out. I
perfect.
was looking at the schedule. It was against the Red Sox. I actually bought these Red Sox socks because I wanted
Those
to
are
be in theme.
fantastic.
I don't
Yep,
wear
you
them a
got
lot.
Fenway Park in there.
I don't wear them a lot, but I bought those socks. I wore my Detroit Tiger shirt, but I bought those socks, and we actually went to a baseball game. So that was a fun baseball themed date that we did. But my other idea from Date That Movie around Fever Pitch,
Hmm.
there's a lot of sports scenes, actually, very small
That's true.
moments, like very small moments. A few of them are with Lindsay and her friends. In one scene, they're at boxing,
Oh yeah, the
where
boxing
one of them gets
scene.
knocked down. One of them gets knocked
Yeah.
down,
Yes.
and so you could have like a boxing club. It could be something fun to do. They go to a spinning class, so cycling, biking could be in there.
The rock climbing.
Rock climbing is in there. There's that brief scene where Ben is playing flag football as well.
I completely
And
forgot
so,
about that. That's a
yep,
good
yep.
one.
I'm saying pick like two. Pick two of these sports, put them together, and that could be a fun day. And you mix and match the sports, and you've got like 3 or 4 different dates. Plus, with your dates, and you're good for like a year
Yep,
of
you're all
doing this.
set.
So, so
Love it.
awesome.
Those are great ideas.
Yeah, and that's one movie. So one movie can just give you tons of ideas around dates. But we did not recommend the vomiting date.
Oh,
As
we don't
great of a date as that was, we did not recommend that
we
one.
don't recommend that, but you could ask your date if they're willing to go clean the bathroom for you before you go out.
Ooh,
Not sure how that would
yeah.
go, but
S- the other person might see that as a deal breaker. Actually,
That's
if
true.
you
That's
ask them
true.
to clean their bathroom,
Okay, don't
unless you
do
want them, unless you
that.
want them gone. If you want them
Well,
gone,
that's
go for it.
true. Yeah, maybe if
Yeah.
you don't want to go on the date, ask that question. Good call. Good call.
Awesome. Well, Kristin, loved having you here. Thanks so much for joining me
Yeah,
on
thank
this
you for having
episode.
me.
Yeah, definitely to discuss Fever Pitch. Thanks to the listeners also for tuning in. Looking forward to having you join us for the next episode of Date Like the Movies. Until next time, my friends, keep dating. Thanks so much.